Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over Poppy. Poppy was announced as a champion today, so I've already looked through this trailer, but we're going to watch through it, kind of give my impressions on Poppy and the other cards that have been released. There's been like 3 sets, I want to say, of cards that have also been released. Give my take, some ideas I have on decks, and just see like how I feel about all these cards and their, overall power level. But first off, we're going to go ahead and jump into this trailer.
All right, team, adventure time. Today's the day I find that hero.
So, as we saw, 4/3, 4 mana. I think 4 mana is a little late coming into the game for a champ. I get it, it's kind of like a Bannerman style. With that being said, I think her ability is good enough that she's still a good card. I think she's kind of niche. She kind of isn't going to fit in every style of deck. But in the ones she hits and makes sense with, she's good for sure.
I can spend a whole fight wondering shield or hammer.
I found it was kind of interesting that in this trailer they have 3 champs. But yeah, elusives, they kind of allude to it. Definitely good with something like Teemo, something like Fizz, Zoe, any just like elusive deck, Ionia elusive decks. I think she'll be sweet. I think this card's pretty bad. I think it's good that for Bandle City though, that they have some interaction for sure, but that's not really the best of it. This card I think is pretty bad, granting 1 health to all of your allies. That late into the game I don't think is going to matter too much. I think you want to look for things that close the game a little bit more. I love this list play, it just kind of does nothing, but whatever. For Teemo. RIP the homie. RIP. But yeah, Poppy definitely has the potential to pop off in a lot of decks. This card, I saw a lot of people gassing it up and talking about it a good amount, but I think it's really slow and probably pretty bad. A 1/1 with double attack. Obviously double attack is crazy, but to develop that into a threat, it's going to take so much. This is one of the nuts kind of control cards. I think more often than not you're gonna be using that on enemy units.
Quest will be over quicker and you can fry a ferret.
This is a card I don't remember what it does. Let's see. Give all allies with equal or less power. This card's pretty sick. Quick attack is one of the best keywords in the game by far. Obviously 2/2 you're gonna need to buff it up to get some good hits on it, but this card I could see it definitely being a threat. Gives itself quick attack, right? Self procs. I think the Poppy. The Poppy effect is kind of hard to get, like the level up requirement, because if we look back, it says that she has to attack with allies for her to proc her level up, which I think it makes it pretty difficult, because on things like Cataclysm, for example, that could be a card that would have been good to proc her level, wouldn't, because there's no allies attacking with her, but her level up is devastating if you can get it going. Granting 2/2 to the board, impact is a crazy keyword, and I mean we see it right there, absolutely. So yeah, we have all the cards here in the trailer. I think this card's pretty bad, unfortunately. But like I said, sometimes a card like this could be bad, but it being an option in a region is enough for it to like see play. You know what I mean? Like there's no other strike spells at the moment. Poppy, obviously, I think she's pretty great. Impact's a pretty cool keyword, and I'm excited to mess around with it. This card, going back again, I think it's probably going to end up being too slow, and people are going to see that. Yordle Squire, I think is great. It's a fantastic Fizz card. If you guys know me, guys, I am all about the Fizz. And this is the most easy auto-include Fizz card I've ever seen if we're pairing it with Bandle City. Yordlesmith seems good for sure. I think it's just pretty interesting, like how to take advantage of it the best way with the stat line it has. And I'm not too high on the Yordle Ranger. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into the mobilytics and go through some of the other cards that weren't listed there and ones that I haven't talked about already. So these are all the ones we just looked at. If we're looking at Shell Game, I think this is an interesting card. It's probably bad. 5 is very expensive for what at the end of the day is just a combat trick, something like elusive can be really strong. But to sink this much mana into buffing, you'd want to buff obviously something big. And it just gets answered by Hush and different removal. I think it's way too expensive for what it does. Manifest an Otterpuss. This card's pretty good, I would say. Yeah, it's pretty flexible in that you can go for a spell, you can go for the unit. This is the Otterpuss, a 1/1 with a tune. When I'm summoned, create a prank in hand, so you get value that way. I feel like more often than not, you're probably just getting another spell. But in the decks that it wants to fit in, I think it's good for sure. Like even like a Victor deck or some other deck where you're wanting to create units, as we see in some of the later cards over here, like the cards where you need to create cards in your hand to get the discounts. I think it's worth and definitely providing value in those ones. I don't think it's busted or anything, but it's cool. Shark Trainer's horrible. It's so expensive. Like at 7 mana, I think you need something that's like devastating, and this is like a long game engine, you know what I mean? Like you have to attack many times to get the value off of it, and I just don't think you're gonna get that off. This card's pretty, like I said, horrid, I would say. Kelp Maidens I think is really good. 2/1 elusive is like the kind of stat line you're looking for. I mean 2/2 obviously the extra health would help a lot, but 2/1 is ideal, and you get a prank, and prank I think is pretty strong at the moment. We'll see like what other cards we get with it and what the whole prank pool is, but from what I've seen, I think prank is a solid I don't know, keyword, you know what I mean. It's a good one. I'm not too high on this card because the unit itself is not really doing much of anything. It's not even a great blocker, and I feel like that's all you'd be wanting it for, because just creating a spell, you'd rather just probably run whatever spell you're looking for. Even though it does give you the 2/2 body, I just think it's not worth for the RNG effect. Create 2 pranks in hand. This is another card not too high on. I think just the stat line is kind of whatever, and no keywords. It's not really offering enough. This is a card I think is a little slept on at the moment. I've heard people talking about how Targon's not really like an elusive region, but they do have a good amount of elusive options, and you could pair it with something like Vandal City or one of the other elusive regions, and then granting the 2 different allies +2/+2 is really good on elusives. I'm gonna mess around with this with elusive decks, and I'll try to prove some people wrong on this one. Furious Feyfolk is pretty interesting. It's a pretty cool card. I think it's probably bad for the mana cost, but it's going to be fun to mess around with. It's one of those ones I'm going to have some fun messing around with, but it doesn't look too strong at the moment. Hungry Owlcat is a token. I forget for what card, though. But obviously 2/1 Spell Shield. Can't go too wrong with that. Oh, paired with this card. I don't really love that. If there's other cards that create the Owlcat, maybe, but to run the babbling whatever this is, nah. 2/4, not really doing anything, and all it's offering you is a 1-drop with Spell Shield. Like, nah, I'll pass on that. Manifest a random Celestial that costs 3 or less. Epic. Oh, so this is just the manifesting. This one's pretty cool. This one I could see having a little bit more potential. Create a Hungry Owlcat in hand. Yeah, so this would be a better option, I think, if you're trying to generate the Owlcats. I think at the end of the day, what this is offering for an elusive deck is just generating chump blockers, so you don't really have to trade down your elusive units, which is kind of ideal. 1/2, not, I was talking about that ideal stat line of 2/1. 1/2 feels pretty bad for an elusive unit. I mean, it's harder to remove for sure, and you can get some prolonged value, but it might not make the cut. I think this is a great card. I think it's super easy to trigger this effect, and then 3 mana draw 2 is great in this game, for sure. People play stuff like Salvage and Whispered Words without even being able to, for Whispered Words at least, proc the discount, and it's worth. So 3 mana draw 2 is great, and at the end of the day, if you really have to play a 5 mana draw 2, if you're that desperate for it, it won't feel that bad. This card seems like a fun time. Fun time, bad card. 10 mana, I think, for any spell is just bad if it's not like the effect's got to be insane. You know what I mean? This card seems pretty bad. 2 health stat line is just too vulnerable to a lot of stuff, and there's just so many better options, especially in Noxus. Like, it does take a champ slot, but something like Draven just a million times better. This seems like a pretty good card. I'm still like not sure if I'm totally sold on impact altogether, but if impact turns out to be like a strong keyword, too tough is great. Tough is just a really strong keyword. I think this is a pretty bad Poro, and I think the sled has a little bit more potential, but even the sled, I think some people are overrating it right now, even for Poro decks. And I think if anything, it hurts Poros more than anything because it kind of like dilutes the card pool. But I do like them adding new stuff and introducing it. So I'm a fan of it existing, but I don't think it's necessarily a great card. This card I think is bad. 4 mana, 4/2 elusive, even if it wasn't conditional, is like, it's good, but I don't think it's doing enough. And the fact that it's conditional, I'm not about this card. All the puff cap synergy cards over here, I think the lecturing Yordle is pretty bad. Very slow coming into the game. The puff cap pup, I think, is actually a little bit slept on. If you're able to get an attack in with it and a block, planting 6 puff caps into the deck and getting value through with the attack and the pressure that that's putting on, and if you can swing that into a favorable trade, I think it's a pretty solid option for a puff cap deck using Vandal City. The Fumes, I think this card's pretty bad, especially it's only P and Z. 2/2 unit, if you added 2+ cards in, deal 3. There's just so many better options in P and Z. I mean, I could see it if you're just like need something else to like maybe drop into an Ezreal deck or something. It might make the cut, but for what it's offering, I don't think it's very good. The Dart, I think, is pretty good. I don't know if it makes the cut, but it's not bad. It's not a bad option. Just what it's offering as far as 1 damage ping, I think is good. But 3 puff caps, I think, is pretty underwhelming at the end of the day. This card seems good, for sure. Because, I mean, obviously, if they draw it, they not only deal damage, but you're breaking their draw. You know, at the end of the day, all they're getting is just a 1 mana 2/1. So, this card is pretty good in a puff cap deck. For one, you are adding to the total amount of puff caps in the deck, which does help work towards Teemo level up and things like that. And the other effect of just bricking a draw, and when that happens, you get guaranteed 2 damage and knowledge on their hand, I think is good. The newbie, I think, is pretty bad. I think it's just empty stats that isn't going to be too impactful at the end of the day. Aloof Travelers, I think people are kind of like overboard on their feelings towards this card. Like, I think it'll be really annoying for the decks that there's certain decks where this punishes them more than others, and it might be annoying for those situations, but I think most of the decks wouldn't even want to be running this as far as Vandal City PNZ decks. Like, as far as elusive stuff, I think most of the time you're probably not looking to run something like this anyways. But I do think it's a strong card. It's just a question of like how strong it is, because I've heard people like going crazy about this, like it shouldn't have been printed and stuff of that nature. I wouldn't go that far. It does give you some card advantage. Like, okay, it probably is an auto include, thinking about it. It's probably at that level, but as far as it being a game breaking option, I don't think it's that by any means. We have Ava Achiever here. When I'm summoned and round end, plant 3 puff caps. This is a double one, right? I think this one's pretty cool. I'm not totally certain on how strong it is for 6 mana, but it has some potential. It definitely has some potential, and if you stack that with some other stuff, I can see it getting extra crazy. So it's definitely a meme, but like something like Dreadway where you just double up on it. 1 puff cap for 4 damage sounds pretty good to me. Take 1 of 3 spells from the enemy deck, plant 3 puff caps on. This card's okay. It's okay, because at the end of the day, it does give you some knowledge on the deck of your opponent, but outside of that, you're just granting 3 puff caps. There's no guarantee if they're gonna draw it. It's within the deck. It's really just like add 3 puff caps to your opponent's deck for 2 mana, which I don't think you'd ever play. Seems pretty weak in my opinion. I'm seeing the 3 different iterations here. I don't know if I'm missing something, but if I am, oh well. Vandal Tree seems like a fun time. Almost impossible to get off, but hey, to the YouTuber that can make it happen, I like it. I love Heimerdinger and all these champs that are here. I love them having this option of just going into Bandle City and going to another region. Teemo, I think, is going to benefit from that. Fizz, I think Bilgewater isn't a great Fizz region, to be honest. I feel like outside of like Zap and a couple cards, most of the time he wants to be out of Bilgewater anyway, so I'm excited to take Bilge out of the equation and then go with some Bandle City options. Lulu, I think, does benefit from Ionia, but it'll be fun to experiment still, and it does open, like, that's the thing I love about this double region. It just opens so many different avenues that it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And Heimer, I think, has been needing to have just some different option, even if P and Z kind of did work for him with some of the stuff like Flash. Like, all I know is where he was at, it wasn't doing it for him. So anything helps. Anything helps him for sure. So I'm very excited to play with a lot of these cards and see some of the other releases that they're gonna have for us. But that's the cards so far that have been released. I'm pretty high on Poppy. Once again, just kind of like summarizing my thoughts. And I think there's some other good cards that are gonna be fun and a lot of different combinations of things that I'm gonna mess around with. So Poppy Elusives is one of the things I was talking about that I'm definitely gonna try to mess around with. But I think Poppy can be a little bit more universal. And I'm excited. I'm excited for sure. With these different region combinations too, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I just need to see the rest of the card pool and see like what other Bandle City cards have in store for us. And then I'm going to get deck building. So hope you guys are excited for that. I'm going to feature a lot of different decks on the channel once this release comes out and Bandle City drops. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this video. Appreciate everybody that watched and stopped by. I'll catch you guys in the next one.